Welcome, dear listener, to the world asleep. Tonight, we travel eastward into the heart of Cambodia, where the jungle breathes quietly and where towers of stone rise above lotus pools, their silhouettes touched by the first light of dawn. This is Angkor Wat, the great temple city, carved in devotion, weathered by centuries, yet still standing as a sanctuary of spirit and silence. Picture yourself standing before the moat at daybreak. The water is still, a mirror reflecting towers that resemble unopened lotus buds reaching toward the heavens. Around you, the jungle begins to stir, the faint call of birds, the whisper of leaves in a soft morning breeze. Slowly, the eastern sky brightens, painting the towers in hues of rose and gold. In this moment, the world feels timeless, as though the centuries have folded into one, carrying you into a dream of stone and light. Angkor Wat is not only an ancient monument, it is a place of living presence, once the heart of a vast empire, later a sanctuary for monks, always a bridge between earth and spirit. Tonight, we will walk through its galleries and gardens, its stories and myths, its silence and its song. Our pace will be gentle, our steps unhurried, allowing the temple to reveal itself slowly, like dawn rising from the horizon. And though you listen from afar, you are part of this journey. If you feel moved to share, you may leave a quiet note in the comments, letting us know from which corner of the world you rest tonight. And if you wish to return, you may gently subscribe to The World Asleep, where each story is a pathway into peace. Now, let us step softly across the bridge and into the sacred city of Angkor Wat. Chapter 1: The Sacred Temple City. When we first approach Angkor Wat, it is not from within, but from the long causeway that stretches across its great moat. The water is wide, as though guarding the temple like an encircling embrace, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting towers and clouds alike. Each step upon the stone path carries us closer, the sound of our own footsteps softened by the morning air. Ahead, the silhouette of the central sanctuary rises, its towers shaped like lotus buds, reaching skyward with quiet elegance. The scale alone inspires awe. Angkor Wat is the largest religious monument in the world, its grounds stretching across more than 500 acres. Yet despite this immensity, it does not overwhelm. Its symmetry and balance soothe the gaze, its proportions carefully measured so that grandeur and harmony coexist. To walk toward it is to feel drawn not into a fortress but into a vision, a place designed not only for kings and priests, but for communion with the divine. As we enter through the outer gateway, the world behind us begins to fade. The jungle still whispers beyond the moat, but here the air shifts, carrying with it the faint scent of stone warmed by centuries of Sunday. Long galleries stretch outward, their colonnades casting alternating bands of light and shadow. Bas reliefs line the walls, thousands of figures carved into sandstone warriors, kings, celestial dancers, mythic beasts. They are not still images, but scenes in motion, stories unfolding silently across stone. The carvings are exquisite in their detail. Soldiers march in endless procession, their spears held upright, their faces serene yet resolute. Chariots wheel across battlefields, their horses straining with carved energy. The celestial dancers, the Apsaras, move with impossible grace, their fingers curling in gestures of blessing, their bodies adorned with intricate headdresses and jewelry. Every line of their form captures movement, as though they are forever caught between stillness and dance. We pause before these carvings, allowing our eyes to wander slowly, tracing the flow of lines and figures. In their repetition and rhythm, there is a calming effect, like a mantra spoken not with voice but with chisel and stone. To imagine the artisans at work, patient hands shaping detail after detail, year after year, is to feel the devotion that infused each surface. This temple is not merely built, it is offered, each carving a prayer, each wall a hymn. Moving deeper, we come to the courtyards that open the temple to the sky. Here, the air feels lighter, the sun falling in wide beams, illuminating stone with warmth. Pools lie within these courtyards, once filled with sacred water, reflecting the towers above. Their surfaces now shimmer faintly with moss, dragonflies darting above them, the stillness broken only by the delicate ripple of insects touching water. And then, at last, we climb the steep steps to the central sanctuary. The stairs are narrow and steep, demanding humility, demanding that one bows slightly as one ascends. Each step feels like a movement inward, a leaving behind of the world outside. At the summit, the view opens 5 towers rising in a quincunx, 4 surrounding one, together symbolizing the peaks of Mount Meru, the cosmic mountain at the center of the universe in Hindu cosmology. To stand here is to stand at the axis of the world, as the Khmer once imagined it. The towers soar above, their profiles jagged yet graceful, like lotus buds eternally in bloom. The air is filled with silence, broken only by the distant cry of a bird, the faint rustle of leaves from the jungle beyond. The space feels both vast and intimate, a meeting place of stone and sky, human devotion and cosmic order. From the highest platform, the view stretches far in all directions. The moat glimmers faintly in the distance, the jungle beyond it rolling in endless green. Within the enclosure, long galleries and courtyards unfold in perfect symmetry, their lines converging upon this sacred center. It is a reminder of both the immensity of the world and the precision of human vision, how a civilization once sought to mirror the universe itself in stone. As we walk slowly along the gallery, the bas-reliefs continue their silent storytelling. Entire epics are carved into the walls, the churning of the ocean of milk, where gods and demons pull upon a giant serpent to churn the cosmic ocean, creating both poison and nectar. Vishnu, the preserver, presides over the scene, his calm figure holding balance amidst the struggle. The detail is astonishing, hundreds of figures, each with unique expression, each movement etched with care. Elsewhere, the reliefs depict scenes of earthly kings and celestial realms, weaving history and mythology into a single fabric. Here, the Khmer kings aligned themselves with gods, their rule not only political but cosmic, their temples not only palaces but universes in miniature. To walk these galleries is to walk through time and story, past and myth entwined until they become inseparable. And yet, for all this grandeur, there is also intimacy. In the corners of courtyards, patches of moss grow upon stone. Small birds perch upon ledges, darting between shadows. Lizards scuttle across the steps, their quick movements catching the sunday. The temple is vast, but it is also tender, alive with small presences that remind us it is not only monument but home for people once, for nature now. As midday comes, the light shifts, pouring down upon the sandstone so that it glows a warm gold. The towers shimmer in the haze of heat, their edges softened by the radiance of the sky. Shadows retreat into galleries where coolness lingers, where one can rest in the quiet embrace of stone. The temple breathes with the rhythm of the day, shifting with light, transforming with each passing hour. Imagine now resting in one of these galleries, your back against a carved pillar, your gaze wandering slowly over figures etched in stone. The silence wraps around you, broken only by the faint murmur of the breeze, the occasional flutter of wings. You feel the cool stone beneath your hand, its texture rough yet reassuring, carrying the weight of centuries. In this stillness, time seems to dissolve. You are no longer visitor but participant, woven into the life of the temple itself. As the sun begins its descent, the temple transforms once again. The warm gold fades into soft amber, then into deepening shadow. The reflection pool before the temple glows with mirrored towers, their forms sharp against the fading sky. And then, as dusk settles, the first stars emerge above, their light mingling with the silhouette of stone. The day draws to its close, and yet the temple does not sleep, it endures, eternal, resting in its rhythm of light and shadow, silence and song. And so, as night approaches, we take one last look at the towers rising above the jungle, their forms softened now, their grandeur quieted by the embrace of dusk. The sacred city stands as it always has, vast yet delicate, monumental yet intimate, both human and divine. It is not simply a place, but a presence, inviting us to walk slowly, to see deeply, to listen to the whispers of stone and jungle alike. Chapter 2: Daily Life in the Khmer Empire. When we imagine Angkor Wat today, it is easy to see only the silence of stone, the calm of empty courtyards, the soft rustle of jungle pressing in at its edges. But long ago, this place was alive with voices. The galleries that now echo only with footsteps once rang with chanting, laughter, conversation, and song. To picture Angkor at its height is to bring back the hum of life that filled its temples and streets, and to feel the pulse of a civilization that flourished here for centuries. At its zenith, the Khmer Empire was among the greatest powers of Southeast Asia. Angkor itself was not just one temple, but a vast city, home to as many as 1 million people. Imagine the scale: wide boulevards lined with homes, bustling markets filled with traders, canals glistening in the sun, and reservoirs so large they mirrored the sky. From the sacred towers to the humblest dwellings, the rhythm of life here was tied to water and to earth, to ritual and to community. Each day began with the rising of the sun, its first light touching the towers of Angkor Wat before spilling across the city beyond. Farmers walked toward the rice fields, their steps steady, their shoulders carrying tools of wood and iron. Rice was not only food but lifeblood, cultivated in terraced fields fed by ingenious irrigation systems. Water flowed through canals and reservoirs known as barrays, engineered with such precision that they sustained the empire for generations. In the green of rice paddies, in the shimmer of water under sunlight, the Khmer people found sustenance and strength. Within the city, artisans shaped stone and bronze, their hands skilled in the crafts that built temples and adorned them with detail. Sculptors carved apsaras into sandstone walls, jewelers set gold into delicate designs, and weavers worked at looms, their cloth bright with colour. Markets buzzed with exchange fish from the Tonla Sap, fruits from the orchards, spices carried by traders from distant lands. The air was filled with scent, the sweetness of ripe mangoes, the sharpness of lemongrass, the smoky richness of cooking fires. At the heart of this world was Angkor Wat itself, not only a temple, but a cosmic center, a place where heaven and earth touched. Here, priests and monks moved through the galleries, their voices raised in chants that echoed against the stone. The smell of incense drifted through the air, curling in slow patterns, rising toward the towers like prayers. Bells rang softly, their tones carrying across courtyards, mingling with the cries of birds, and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Festivals brought life into even greater rhythm. Imagine the celebration of the new year when crowds filled the courtyards, their laughter mingling with the chanting of priests. Offerings of flowers and fruit adorned altars. Dancers in bright costume moved with graceful steps. Drums and flutes filled the air with music. At night, lanterns were lit, their glow reflecting in the pools, their flicker casting shadows across carvings of gods and kings. The temple was not a silent ruin. It was a living, breathing heart, beating with devotion and joy. Children ran through the courtyards, their laughter rising into the air. Women drew water from wells, their voices carrying as they spoke of family and harvest. Elders sat in the shade, their words weaving stories of gods and ancestors. Every wall that now stands in silence once carried the resonance of countless lives, countless breaths. The empire's power extended far beyond the walls of Angkor. Roads stretched outward in every direction, connecting the city to villages, forests, and distant provinces. Envoys came bearing tribute, traders brought goods from India and China, and travelers returned with stories of far-off lands. Angkor was not only a city of stone, it was a crossroads of culture, a place where ideas and traditions mingled like rivers meeting at confluence. And yet, for all its scale, daily life was also simple. A farmer bending to plant rice, a child learning to write upon palm leaf with ink, a monk seated in meditation, eyes closed, listening to the silence within. Life flowed as water flowed through canals, through streets, through the rhythm of sun and moon. As evening fell, the city slowed. Fires burned in small hearths, their light golden against the darkening sky. Families gathered, sharing bowls of rice, vegetables, fish from the river. The sounds of the day softened the calls of vendors fading, the songs of birds replaced by the chirping of crickets. Within the temple, the last offerings of incense smoldered, their smoke trailing upward as stars began to appear above the towers. The city settled into rest, its people wrapped in the same rhythms that guide us still: work and rest, light and dark, devotion and peace. Walking through Angkor Wat today, it is possible to feel the echo of these lives. The grooves in stone steps bear the wear of countless feet. The walls hold marks of hands long vanished. The courtyards, though empty, seem to wait for voices that once filled them. In stillness, the presence of those who lived here lingers, not as ghosts, but as quiet memory. And as we let our minds drift across centuries, we can sense the beauty of their balance, the way the Khmer people wove together earth and sky, water and stone, labor and devotion. They created not only a city, but a harmony, a place where human life moved in rhythm with the divine. Now, as our steps slow and the day fades into twilight once more, we turn our gaze inward. Beyond daily life lies a deeper current, the spiritual heart of Angkor Wat, where gods and myths find form in stone, where rituals shaped the rhythms of the empire, where devotion itself carved towers that still rise above the jungle. It is there that we now walk softly into the sacred heart of the temple. Chapter 3: The Spiritual Heart. Beyond the bustle of markets and the murmur of daily life, Angkor Wat rose not only as a city but as a sanctuary of spirit. To step deeper into its courtyards was to step into the presence of the sacred, into a space designed to mirror the cosmos itself. Every line of stone, every tower, every carving was not merely architecture, but devotion expressed in form. The Khmer people who built Angkor Wat lived in a world shaped by myth and ritual, where the divine was not distant, but near. Their temple was not only a place to pray, but a model of the universe, a bridge between heaven and earth, a dwelling place for gods and ancestors alike. To walk here was to walk within a vision of the cosmos. At the heart of this vision stood Mount Meru, the sacred mountain of Hindu cosmology. It was said to be the center of all creation, the axis around which the heavens turned, the home of gods and the seat of order. The towers of Angkor Wat rose to embody this mountain, their shapes echoing lotus buds in bloom, their arrangement mirroring the peaks of Meru. Around them stretched courtyards and galleries, symbolizing the continents and oceans, each moat and wall reflecting layers of the cosmos itself. The temple was not only stone upon earth, it was the universe carved in miniature, a sacred model that bound the earthly kingdom to divine order. Walking among these towers, one can feel the weight of this symbolism. The steps rise steep and narrow, demanding humility from those who ascend. The galleries unfold in perfect symmetry, drawing the eye always toward the center, the place of greatest sanctity. Here, the king himself would have come, not only as ruler of men, but as child of the gods, his throne sanctified by the presence of Vishnu, the preserver of worlds. Indeed, Angkor Wat was first dedicated to Vishnu, the great deity who sustains the universe, whose calm presence holds creation in balance. Unlike many Hindu temples which face east, Angkor Wat faces west, a direction often associated with Vishnu, but also with the setting sun, with death and transition. Some believe this orientation hints at its dual purpose, both as temple and as funerary monument, a place where the king would join with the divine after death. The walls themselves speak this sacred language. Carved into endless bas-reliefs are stories from the great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. One can follow entire battles across the stone, the figures alive with movement, their forms caught forever in struggle and grace. In one gallery, gods and demons join in the great churning of the ocean of milk, pulling upon the serpent Vasuki, using Mount Mandara as their churning rod, seeking the nectar of immortality. The detail is astonishing, rows upon rows of divine beings, their arms straining, their bodies carved with such life that they seem to ripple with effort. Above it all, Vishnu stands serene, guiding the process, embodying the calm within chaos. These carvings are not mere decoration, they are scripture, teaching through image what words alone cannot hold. To the people of Angkor, they were reminders of cosmic truths, stories that anchored the temple in the divine order of creation and destruction, balance and renewal. To walk past them was to be immersed in myth, to see the eternal struggles of gods reflected in the struggles of daily life. As centuries passed, Angkor Wat became not only a Hindu sanctuary, but also a Buddhist one. The great stone halls that once echoed with prayers to Vishnu grew to hold the chants of monks, their voices rising in rhythm with the striking of wooden bells. The Buddha's image appeared in corners and galleries, serene and still, his eyes closed in meditation. The temple adapted, yet it did not lose its sanctity. Instead, it became a place where traditions intertwined, where gods of one faith gave way to the wisdom of another, yet both were honored in the same sacred space. Imagine now the temple filled with devotion. The scent of incense drifts through the galleries, carried on the faint breeze. Monks in saffron robes walk slowly, their steps soft, their chants deep and resonant. The smoke rises in curling threads, meeting the beams of sunlight that pierce through narrow windows. The air feels thick with presence, not heavy, but profound, as though every sound, every scent, every ray of light is part of a greater whole. Festivals deepened this sense of sacredness. During great celebrations, Pilgrims would journey for days, carrying offerings of flowers and food. They would gather in the courtyards, their voices joining in prayer, their songs echoing beneath the towers. Dancers performed in honor of the gods, their movements precise, their gestures symbolic, their forms echoing the apsaras carved into stone. The temple glowed with lanterns at night, their flames flickering in rhythm with the stars above, turning stone into living firelight. Even now, though centuries have passed, this spiritual heart beats on. Monks still chant within its halls. Pilgrims still come, bowing before altars, lighting incense that curls into the same sky as it once did 1,000 years ago. The temple is not a relic. It is alive with devotion, carrying forward the rhythm of spirit that first gave it birth. For those who pause here, there is a stillness unlike any other. To sit upon the stone steps, to close the eyes, to listen to the hum of cicadas outside and the faint echo of a chant within is to touch that stillness. It is not emptiness, but fullness, the presence of countless lives, countless prayers, countless offerings layered one upon another, forming a silence deeper than any sound. This is the heart of Angkor Wat, not simply its towers, not simply its carvings, but its devotion. A devotion that endures through centuries, that shifts from faith to faith yet never fades, that binds the grandeur of stone to the humility of prayer. It is here, in this heart, that Angkor reveals itself most truly not only as a monument of kings, but as a sanctuary for all who seek connection with the divine. And as we let this sense of devotion settle within us, we begin to notice the other stories carried here, not only of gods and rituals, but of legends whispered in the jungle, of myths that explain the temple's origins, of spirits said to guard its stones and waters. For beyond the architecture, beyond the history, there lives a world of folklore, woven into the very being of Angkor. And it is toward these stories, these whispers of imagination and wonder, that our journey now turns. Chapter 4: Folklore of Angkor. Every great monument is built not only with stone and labour, but with story. For the Khmer people, Angkor Wat was never merely a structure of sandstone. It was a place alive with legend, shaped as much by myth as by chisel. To walk here is to hear those whispers still, carried in the rustle of leaves, the call of birds, the hush of wind moving through carved corridors. The folklore of Angkor softens the stone with wonder, turning its towers into symbols, its carvings into voices, its silence into story. One of the most enduring tales is that of its divine construction. It is said that Angkor Wat was not built by human hands alone, but by the aid of the gods themselves. Some versions speak of Indra, king of the heavens, commanding the temple's creation as a dwelling for his son. Others suggest that celestial architects descended to shape the towers, moving stone as easily as clouds move across sky. In this telling, Angkor's grandeur is not surprising, it is divine, born of heavenly labour, a place where earth touches the realm of the gods. The apsaras, those celestial dancers carved by the thousands upon Angkor's walls, are not only decoration but myth come alive. In Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, apsaras are spirits of the heavens, embodiments of beauty, grace and movement. They dance in the courts of gods, their steps marking the rhythm of creation itself. At Angkor, their presence is everywhere, more than 1,500 figures carved into stone, each with a unique face, unique gesture, unique adornment. They are not repetitions, but individuals, as though the artisans sought to capture the infinity of divine beauty. To the people of Angkor, These apsaras were not only carvings but blessings. Their dance was believed to bring fertility to the land, abundance to the harvest, joy to the people. Even now, as one walks through the galleries, the dancers seem to stir. Their smiles are soft, their eyes gentle, their fingers curled in eternal movement. It is easy, in the hush of twilight, to imagine them stepping from the stone, their footsteps light upon the floor, their laughter ringing faintly like wind chimes in the night. Another presence woven deeply into Angkor's folklore is that of the Nagas, the serpent spirits. In Southeast Asian tradition, Nagas are protectors of water, guardians of rivers and rain, beings who dwell in both earth and spirit. They are said to be capable of immense power, yet they are also generous, granting fertility and blessing to those who honor them. According to legend, the Khmer people themselves are descended from a Naga. The tale tells of an Indian prince, Kaundinya, who journeyed across the sea and met a Naga princess. They were married, and from their union sprang the Khmer line. In this way, every Khmer carried within them the spirit of the serpent, the blessing of the waters. Angkor, with its moats and reservoirs, its endless reliance upon water, reflects this myth. The Nagas carved upon its balustrades are not ornament, but guardians, serpents, whose bodies form bridges, carrying the faithful across from the human world to the sacred. To walk across the causeway at Angkor Wat is to walk upon the body of a Naga. The great seven-headed serpent stretches out, its hoods flaring, its scales carved with precision. It is as though one passes not only into a temple, but across a threshold of spirit, entering a place where human and divine intermingle. There are also tales of curses whispered by generations who lived in the temple's shadow. Some spoke of hidden chambers filled with treasure, guarded by spirits who would strike down those who sought them. Others warned of wandering souls who lingered in the galleries, guardians of the sanctity of stone. These stories were not born of fear alone, but of reverence. They reminded listeners that Angkor was not to be approached lightly, that it demanded respect, that within its walls lingered powers older than memory. Folklore also tells of kings whose fates were entwined with Angkor's stones. One story speaks of King Suryavarman II, the great ruler who commissioned Angkor Wat. It is said that he dreamed of a temple so vast, so perfect, that it would mirror the universe itself. In his dream, Vishnu appeared, blessing his vision, promising that the temple would endure as long as devotion filled its halls. But the story adds a warning that should the temple ever be abandoned, should prayer ever cease, the jungle itself would rise to reclaim it, vines and roots twisting over towers, silence swallowing song. For centuries, this prophecy seemed to unfold. When Angkor was abandoned, the forest did indeed return, wrapping its roots around pillars, pressing stone and tree together until they became inseparable. Yet the temple endured, not lost but hidden, as though the gods themselves protected it through centuries of silence, waiting until devotion returned. In the cool of night, when moonlight falls upon the towers, local villagers sometimes tell of strange lights moving among the galleries, or the faint sound of music drifting on the breeze. These are said to be the apsaras themselves, dancing once more, or the spirits of kings and priests walking their ancient paths. Whether true or not, the sense of presence is undeniable. Angkor Wat does not feel empty, it feels inhabited, alive with something unseen. Even the animals of the temple are touched by legend. Bats roost in its towers, their wings whispering against stone as dusk falls. Monkeys climb across walls, their cries echoing in the courtyards. For villagers, these creatures were not intruders, but companions of the temple's spirit, messengers of the gods, reminders that the sacred and the natural are never separate. The folklore of Angkor Wat is not merely entertainment. It is a way of seeing, a way of honoring, a way of remembering that the temple is not only stone but story. Without these myths, the carvings would be silent, the towers empty. With them, every figure carved upon the walls comes alive, every shadow holds possibility, every breeze carries the echo of gods and dancers, serpents and kings. Imagine yourself now, sitting quietly within a gallery, the moonlight spilling across the bas-reliefs. The apsaras smile from the walls, their faces softened by shadow. The nagas coil upon the balustrades, their forms gleaming faintly in silver light. The jungle murmurs beyond, its sounds blending with silence until both become one. In this moment, it is easy to feel the truth of folklore not as history, but as presence. These stories live here still, as real as stone, as eternal as night. And so, as we leave behind these whispers of myth, we step once more into the embrace of nature. For beyond the stories of gods and spirits lies another story, that of the jungle itself, which grew to reclaim Angkor, weaving tree and stone together into a vision of ruin and renewal. Let us now walk softly into that green world and see how time and nature shaped the temple after the voices of kings had fallen silent. Chapter 5: The Jungle's Embrace. When the empire's power waned, when kings no longer walked the galleries and prayers no longer filled the courtyards, Angkor Wat did not fall into ruin all at once. It did not crumble like walls besieged. Instead, it drifted quietly into silence and into the arms of the forest that had always surrounded it. The jungle is patient. It does not rush. Slowly, over decades and centuries, roots reached outward, seeds sprouted in cracks, vines coiled across stone. Rain fell upon towers and seeped into joints, softening mortar, carrying soil into the smallest crevices. From that soil, saplings grew, their roots pressing deeper, splitting stone apart and yet binding it together. The temple became less a monument against nature and more a monument within it. To imagine Angkor in those centuries is to see both beauty and melancholy. Picture the great causeway over the moat, once thronged with pilgrims and courtiers, now quiet, the stone darkened by moss, the balustrades broken where nagas once stretched. The galleries, once bright with lanterns and dancers, stood in shadow, their carvings softened by lichen, their apsaras wearing veils of green. Birds nested in towers, bats clung in dark corners, and monkeys scampered freely, claiming the courtyards as their own. And yet, in this quiet reclamation, there was also a strange preservation. The very jungle that seemed to consume the temple also sheltered it. The roots that broke stone also held it together, locking blocks in place even as they split them apart. The canopy of trees shaded walls from harsh sun. The layers of vines softened the erosion of rain. In the silence of the forest, Angkor was hidden, yes, but also kept alive. One need only walk among the neighboring temples to see this union most clearly. At Tar Prom, massive silk cotton trees rise from the stone itself, their roots cascading downward like frozen rivers, gripping walls, twisting over roofs, snaking across courtyards. Their scale is immense, roots thicker than human bodies, trunks towering above the towers themselves. To stand there is to feel as though the forest has become the true architect, remaking the temple in its own image. The atmosphere is otherworldly. Light filters through leaves, scattering across roots and stone in shifting patterns. The sound is hushed, the air thick with moisture, carrying the scent of earth and sap. Birds call from the canopy, their notes high and distant, while the rustle of unseen creatures stirs the undergrowth. Ta Prohm, with its trees entwined with towers, is perhaps the most dreamlike vision of Angkor's embrace, a place where ruin and growth are indistinguishable, where the boundaries of human and nature blur. At Beng Melia, another temple surrendered almost entirely to the jungle, the sight is wilder still. Here, collapsed galleries lie in heaps, their stones covered in moss, their corridors blocked by roots and vines. Walking through is less like visiting a ruin and more like stepping into a forgotten dream, as though one has stumbled upon a city remembered only by trees and sky. The silence is deep, yet not empty. The forest hums with insects, with the slow creak of branches, with the endless heartbeat of life renewing itself. For the people of the region, this reclamation was never seen as destruction alone. In their eyes, the forest was alive with spirit, with guardians who watched over the temples even in abandonment. The Apis of Cambodia, the unseen beings of the land, were believed to dwell among the roots and stones, their presence felt in the hush of air, in the sudden cry of a bird, in the sensation of being watched in solitude. The jungle was not only taking back, it was also protecting, weaving the sacred into its own endless cycle. To walk in these places at dusk is to feel that presence most keenly. The light fades quickly under the canopy, the roots and towers casting long shadows. Mist rises from the forest floor, curling around trunks, softening every shape. The temples seem to breathe with the jungle, each stone exhaling moisture, each root pulsing faintly with life. The stillness deepens until every sound, the chirp of a gecko, the flap of a bird's wing, feels magnified, part of a greater, hidden rhythm. It is tempting to see ruin only as loss, yet here, ruin becomes beauty, a reminder that nothing is ever truly lost. The Khmer Empire may have passed, but its stones endure, not in defiance of nature, but in harmony with it. The jungle enfolds Angkor as one enfolds a child, tight, consuming, but also protective, carrying it through centuries until the world was ready to see it again. And when travelers eventually returned, guided by locals who had always known these paths, they did not find a barren ruin. They found temples alive with roots and vines, places where human ambition and natural growth had become inseparable. Their astonishment was not only at the scale of the stone, but at the strange beauty of its entanglement. The forest had not erased Angkor, it had transformed it into something even more extraordinary. Even today, though many roots have been cut back, though restoration has cleared corridors and steadied walls, the vision of Angkor embraced by the jungle remains. Visitors walk beneath roots that arch like bridges, stand before towers half hidden in leaves, touch stone worn smooth by centuries of moss and rain. The union of nature and architecture is what gives Angkor its dreamlike power, what makes it linger in memory long after the eye has closed. Close your eyes now and imagine yourself within this embrace. You stand in a courtyard where roots pour downward like waterfalls of wood, where vines dangle in the air, where ferns sprout from cracks in the stone. The air is cool and damp, filled with the fragrance of earth. Above, shafts of sunlight pierce the canopy, illuminating patches of green that glow like emerald fire. You breathe slowly, deeply, and feel yourself dissolve into the rhythm of ruin and renewal, of stillness and growth. The jungle does not judge, does not hurry, does not mourn. It simply continues, reclaiming, reshaping, renewing. And in this endless patience lies a lesson that time is not loss, but transformation. What was once abandoned becomes alive again, not in the same form, but in a form equally sacred. Angkor Wat, wrapped in the forest, is not a ruin at all. It is a reminder that nothing we build is apart from nature. We are always within its embrace, always part of its greater whole. And so, as the jungle holds Angkor in silence, we continue our walk forward, following the thread of story. For just as the forest embraced the temple in centuries past, so too did the wider world one day rediscover it, lifting it once more into light. Now we move from silence to reawakening, from hidden sanctuary to wonder revealed. Chapter 6: The Rediscovery. For centuries, Angkor Wat lingered in silence, embraced by the jungle, remembered by the local people who lived in its shadow but unknown to much of the wider world. The stone endured. The apsaras smiled from moss-covered walls. The Nagas stretched their bodies along balustrades, half hidden by vines, and the jungle kept its secret. Yet no secret lasts forever. In time, the world's gaze turned once again to the forests of Cambodia. What it found was not a ruin newly discovered, but a wonder that had never truly been lost, a temple city that had been waiting, patient, for voices to return. The story often told is of Henri Mouhot, a French naturalist and explorer who visited Angkor in the mid-19th century. He wrote with astonishment of the temples he saw, describing them as grand as anything left to us by Greece or Rome. His journals, published after his death, captured the imagination of Europe, painting a picture of a vast lost city swallowed by jungle. To readers far away, it seemed as though a forgotten civilization had suddenly emerged from shadow, its secrets unveiled in dramatic fashion. But for the Khmer people, Angkor had never vanished. Local villagers had lived among its ruins for generations, tending rice in the shadow of towers, walking the galleries, honoring shrines. To them, these temples were not discovery but continuity, part of the land, part of memory, part of the rhythm of daily life. What changed with the arrival of explorers was not knowledge, but recognition. Angkor was no longer hidden from the eyes of the wider world. As word spread, scholars, archaeologists, and adventurers journeyed to Cambodia. They came upon the towers rising from the jungle, the galleries filled with carvings, the roots entwined with stone. Some were overwhelmed by the scale Angkor Wat, Angkor Thom, Bayon with its serene faces carved in stone. They compared it to the greatest monuments on earth, marveling at the vision and skill that had raised such a city. For many, the atmosphere was dreamlike. To walk through Angkor was to wander between worlds, the human and the divine, the natural and the built, the past and the present. Explorers described it with a mixture of awe and melancholy. For though the temples stood, the empire that had created them was gone, leaving only whispers among the stones. Soon, efforts began to study, to map, to restore. French archaeologists of the École Française d'Extrême-Orient arrived in the early 20th century, working carefully to clear jungle growth, to stabilize walls, to bring order to a site that had grown wild. They faced a delicate task: to preserve without erasing, to reveal without destroying the beauty of nature's touch. For many visitors, the intertwining of root and stone was part of Angkor's soul. To cut away too much was to risk diminishing its mystery. Over the decades, restoration continued. Collapsed walls were rebuilt, carvings cleaned, water systems studied. Yet always the question remained: how much should be restored, and how much left to the poetry of ruin? Even now, the debate lingers, as preservationists weigh the need for stability with the need to protect the atmosphere of a city partly claimed by the jungle. As Angkor stepped once more into the world's gaze, it became a symbol not only of Khmer heritage, but of human creativity at its most profound. In 1992, UNESCO declared Angkor a World Heritage Site. recognizing both its immense cultural value and the urgency of its protection. Since then, efforts have continued to safeguard the temples against time, against weather, against the sheer weight of millions of footsteps drawn to its courtyards each year. And yet, for all the scholarship, for all the careful work, the essence of Angkor remains something beyond measure. It is not only stone, not only art, not only history, it is presence. For those who walk its causeways at dawn, the rediscovery is personal, intimate. The towers glow against the sky, reflected in the stillness of the pool, and the heart stirs with recognition not of something new, but of something timeless, something that has always been waiting. Imagine now a traveler arriving in the early years of rediscovery. They step onto the causeway at first light, the jungle still heavy with mist. Before them rise the towers, half veiled by vines, their outlines softened by the air. They walk slowly, their footsteps echoing faintly against stone, their breath caught by the sight of apsaras smiling from moss-darkened walls. In that moment, the centuries dissolve, and the temple speaks again, as though it had never been silent. The rediscovery of Angkor was never a single moment, never a sudden unveiling. It was a gradual unfolding, like dawn across the horizon, like mist lifting from the forest. Each generation saw anew, each visitor carried away a piece of its wonder, each scholar added another thread to its story. Angkor was not lost, it was simply waiting for us to pause long enough to listen. Today, millions journey here each year. They arrive before dawn, gathering by the reflection pools, watching the towers glow as the sun rises behind them. Cameras click, voices murmur, but then a hush falls as light spills across the stones, turning them gold. For a moment, the rediscovery happens again, not in books or journals, but in the quiet awe of each heart that sees the temple bathed in morning light. And yet, even as the world presses closer, Angkor retains its silence. Step away from the crowds, into a shaded gallery or a hidden courtyard, and the jungle's voice returns the rustle of leaves, the hum of insects, the call of a bird. The apsaras smile as they always have, the nagas stretch as they always have, the towers rise as they always have. The rediscovery is not only history, it is also this moment, this presence, this stillness. From silence to recognition, from hidden sanctuary to global wonder, Angkor Wat has travelled far. But through it all, its essence has not changed. It is still what it always was, a sanctuary of spirit, a vision in stone, a meeting place of earth and heaven. And so, as we let the story of rediscovery rest, we move now into a softer vision. For the temple does not only belong today, to scholars, to restoration. It belongs also tonight, to the hush of moonlight, to the stars above the towers, to the jungle's nocturnal song. Let us step quietly now into that darkness and see how Angkor Wat breathes when the world sleeps. Chapter 7. Beneath the Moonlit Towers. As the sun sinks beyond the horizon and the final colours of dusk fade into deep indigo, Angkor Wat transforms. In the day it is filled with movement, pilgrims and visitors, scholars and caretakers, the hum of voices and the rhythm of footsteps. But at night, the temple exhales, the galleries empty, the causeway falls silent, and the city of stone is once more left to the embrace of the jungle and the stars. The air cools, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and leaves. Bats stir from the towers, their wings whispering as they spiral into the night. The last birds retreat to the canopy, replaced by the hum of insects, the croak of frogs, the distant call of an owl. The jungle does not sleep. It shifts into another rhythm, one made of softer sounds, of hidden movement, of life that thrives in darkness. Angkor Wat breathes with this rhythm, its silence filled not with emptiness but with presence. The moon rises, silver and patient. Its light touches the towers, turning sandstone into pale ivory. Shadows stretch long across the courtyards, climbing the walls, pooling in the corners of galleries. In the reflection pools, the towers shimmer faintly, their images trembling in the rippling surface. It is a vision of stillness, yet alive, as though the temple itself is dreaming. Walking through the galleries by moonlight is a different experience than by day. The carvings soften, their details blurred, yet the apsaras seem even more alive. Their smiles glimmer in silver, their eyes half-shadowed, their bodies caught in a dance that feels as if it might begin again at any moment. The stories on the walls dissolve into mystery, their lines less literal, more like whispers of memory carried by stone. In the quiet of night, the temple speaks not with grandeur, but with intimacy. One can sit upon the steps, listen to the hum of cicadas, and feel the weight of centuries not as history, but as presence. The kings, the artisans, the pilgrims, the monks, all who once walked here feel near, their voices softened into the rustle of leaves, their devotion echoing in the silence. The temple is not empty. It is full of all who have ever loved it. Above, the stars appear, sharp and brilliant against the dark sky. They scatter across the heavens, mirrored faintly in the still waters below. For the Khmer, the stars were not distant, but kin, their light woven into the myths of gods and heroes, their patterns guiding ritual and time. To sit beneath them now, with Angkor's towers rising into their glow, is to feel the same wonder, the same connection between earth and sky. The temple becomes once more what it was always meant to be, a bridge, a meeting place between human devotion and the vastness of the cosmos. There is peace here, deep and profound. The noise of the modern world falls away, the worries of the day dissolve. What remains is the steady rhythm of breath, the softness of moonlight, the quiet endurance of stone. Angkor teaches us, in this stillness, that time need not rush, that beauty need not fade, that even as civilizations rise and fall, there is something within us that endures silent, steady, sacred. Imagine yourself now lying upon the stone steps, your head resting back, your gaze lifted to the stars. The towers loom above, their outlines sharp against the sky, their forms ancient and eternal. The jungle murmurs softly around you, its lullaby gentle, endless. The cool night air drifts across your skin, carrying the faint scent of flowers, of earth, of stone warmed by the day. You breathe slowly, deeply, and with each breath, the world grows softer, quieter, more distant. The temple becomes less a place outside you and more a presence within you. The apsaras dance not only on the walls but in your dreams. The nagas guard not only the causeway but your rest. The towers rise not only into the sky but into the silence of your heart. Angkor is not only here in Cambodia, it is wherever reverence dwells, wherever silence is honored, wherever the sacred is remembered. And as you let go, as you drift closer to sleep, the stories we have walked together remain. The story of its sacred architecture, carved to mirror the cosmos. The story of its people, whose daily rhythms were woven into its courtyards. The story of gods and myths, of apsaras and nagas, of divine builders and serpent guardians. The story of silence and jungle, of roots and vines, of ruin and renewal. The story of rediscovery, of wonder returned, of the world's gaze drawn once more to this jewel of stone. And now, the story of night, of moonlight, of stillness. All of these are Angkor Wat. All of these linger within you like whispers beneath the stars. So let the temple cradle you now as the jungle cradled it. Let the silence hold you as the towers hold the sky. Let the rhythm of your breath become one with the rhythm of night, one with the hum of insects, the murmur of leaves, the gentle song of the earth. You are safe here, you are held here, you are at peace here. And as you drift, as your body softens and your thoughts grow faint, remember that you are part of something vast, something timeless. Just as Angkor endures, so too does the spirit within you, the stillness, the strength, the beauty that cannot be erased. The temple is eternal, and tonight, so is your rest. Good night, dear listener. Thank you for walking with me among the towers of Angkor Wat, among its stories and its silence. If you wish to journey again into worlds of stone and sky, forest and myth, you may gently subscribe to The World Asleep. And if you feel moved to share where you rest tonight, you may leave a quiet note in the comments below, adding your voice to this constellation of souls connected by story. But for now, let go. Close your eyes, breathe, allow the moonlit towers of Angkor to fade into dream. And as you sleep, may you be carried not only by silence, but by the eternal spirit of a temple that has watched centuries rise and fall and still stands in peace. Good night.